Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. We apologize for the technical difficulties. This is the April meeting of the Louisville Town Council coming to you a few minutes late. We've been working through some technical difficulties. I think that we ask your indulgence, your patience, and we may have a few more before the meeting's over, but thank you for joining us this evening. We'll begin our meeting this evening with an invocation by our attorney, Bo Houff.
Let us pray. God our Father, we give you thanks for this beautiful day. We ask your continued care over us during this difficult time of crisis with COVID-19. We thank you, however, for the opportunity to be closer to our families during this time and to slow our lives down just a little bit. God our Father, we give you thanks for this town. We give you thanks for the staff that puts things together, and we give you thanks for this hardworking elected body. Give them patience, give them wisdom, give them grace during the time of this meeting. We ask your blessings upon those who may be watching or listening to this meeting as well. At the end of this meeting, we ask you to continue to keep your care over us. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bo. We'll do our roll call a little bit differently. Council members present this evening are Councilmember Melissa Hunt, Councilmember David Smitherman, Councilmember Fred Franklin, Councilmember Ken Sadler, Councilmember Jane Welch, Mayor Pro Tem Jean Marie Foster, and Mayor Mike Horn. We're all present and here this evening. Council members, we do have a couple of changes on the agenda that was sent to you earlier. If you will look, please, at 11, we're going to add 11D. And this is a budget ordinance for Warren Park Drive to do a tree protection survey. Then on 12, we're adding a B3, which is a Vienna Village sign requirement or request update. Ms. Walker, have we had any more changes or additions since our last discussion?
No, I've not received any.
Very good. Council members, any additions or changes to our agenda this evening? With that, we'll entertain a motion. Dr. Sadler makes the motion. Councilmember Hunt makes the second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That will be unanimous. Very good. Hank, would you go through the consent agenda for us, please?
Yes, the consent agenda has 6 items. The first is Resolution 202019, the acceptance and approval of monthly financials for the 8th month ending February 29th, 2020. Next is the approval of council briefing and action minutes from February 6th, 2020. Next is approval of council regular meeting minutes from February 13th, 2020. The approval of council briefing and action minutes from March 5th, 2020. The approval of council regular meeting minutes from March 12th, 2020, and finally, approval of council special meeting minutes from March 16th, 2020.
Council members, any suggestions or additions to the consent agenda for this evening?
Hey, Mayor.
Councilmember Franklin.
Yes. On the resolution 2020-019, the acceptance of the approval of monthly financials, I believe it has the wrong adoption date in the resolution. It's reading that it was adopted on April the 2nd versus April the 9th. So with that correction, I would make acknowledge we can approve it. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with that.
Very good. Ms. Walker, you have that change?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're getting a lot of background noise. Hank, do you want to actually mute yourself if you would? We're getting a lot of background noises. Thank you. Very good. Mr. Franklin makes a motion to accept the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Welch makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That's unanimous. Ladies and gentlemen, the consent agenda are items that come before the council on a regular basis. They generally include our financial reports, our minutes, and other routine items. We take them all as a group for expediency's sake, but any council member can ask that any single item be withdrawn to discuss individually. Very good. We do have a It's not really a proclamation as much as it is a recognition tonight. And I'm going to kind of steal my notes over here on the side, so I'm not looking at you, but I'm looking at the notes. Tonight, we'd like to recognize Serena Horner. She is one of our Louisville Student Committee participants. Serena is quite a young woman if you've ever met her. She just was recently awarded the Governor's Volunteer Youth Service Award for Forsyth County, quite an accomplishment. Among her many activities, probably far too many to list for this meeting, she organized the Food Backpack Program at Forsyth Country Day to provide food for kids at risk all across Forsyth County. She successfully challenged the 2-bag rule on the Winston-Salem Transit Authority buses. Now that sounds kind of interesting. I'm getting some feedback here from someplace.
Yeah.
Is somebody watching Channel 6 while they're...
Yeah, Mayor, I think it may be is it the volume in the lobby?
No, volume's off here.
It sounds like somebody might be watching Channel 6 in the same room as where that feedback's coming
Yeah,
from.
that's what it sounds like to me too.
Okay. Is it gone?
No.
I'm still kind of hearing it too.
If we can tell when you're talking, Mike. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay, well, we'll continue and we'll just kind of live with it. The 2-bag rule was interesting. Winston-Salem Transit Authority only allowed riders to carry 2 bags of groceries. And if you've seen the plastic bags that you come from with most grocery stores, it's not a whole lot of food in there. Serena felt that that was not enough. It was creating a hardship for folks that depended primarily on the transit authority for their transportation. So she went to City Hall and asked them to change it. And I can say to you, as of the Monday night meeting, I believe, of the Winston-Salem City Council, they have removed that restriction, and so now folks can get on with a more reasonable amount of groceries. They say you can't challenge City Hall. Well, Serena did it, and that was quite a feat. She also created, if not you, who? It's a program to encourage volunteer participation in Forsyth County. She also co-founded with her sister Yasmin the Forsyth County Young Leaders Program. This is a mentoring program for teenagers in our county. And I just mentioned her sister Yasmin. Yasmin was also a member of our Student Leadership Committee several years ago, who has gone on to do great things. Both Yasmin and Serena are the daughters of Shada and Vance Horner. Shada is on our Parks and Recreation Committee, and Vance is on our Zoning Board of Adjustments. So I hope if you see any of the family members wandering around town, obviously don't get too close, but at least say congratulations, and we're all very proud of you. You make a great addition to Louisville, and you're just another reason why Louisville is a great place to live. Thank you. Hank, you have your budget presentation this evening.
Yes, sir. As every year happens at this time of year, this is the presentation of the manager's recommended budget for the upcoming fiscal year of 2020-2021, hard to say. So at this time, I traditionally read the budget message, and this kicks off the season of budget meetings with council. Following the meeting this evening and tomorrow, we will be delivering hard copies to everyone on the council. No one had indicated that they wanted a hard copy except for Jean Marie just this afternoon. Is anybody satisfied with only the electric copy, or would you want a hard copy for looking at it?
I think Pam has indicated to me that she is so proud of this budget and all the work that went into it that she would like everybody to have a hard copy of it. And she showed me a copy this afternoon. I absolutely agree. It's a terrific document, contains lots of information. So we'll be sure.
Okay.
Hank and I will be delivering those tomorrow. If you're home, we'll give them to you. If not, we'll leave them on your doorstep.
Okay. With that, I'd like to read this proposed fiscal year's budget message. Honorable Mayor and Town Council, as Town Manager, I am pleased to present the proposed general fund budget of $4,751,485 for fiscal year 2020-2021. The budget as proposed includes maintaining the current tax rate of 17.7 cents per $100 of valuation. This budget shows an increase in the general fund budget the previous year as adopted for July 1st, 2019 of $95,160 or or 2.04%. This budget as proposed is balanced with $230,510 in fund balance from the general fund. This fund balance appropriation represents the costs associated with projects that are not recurring operational costs. The tax base for the town as of April 1st, 2020 was $1,426,177,776, producing an estimated ad valorem tax revenue of $2,448,605, with 1 cent of the tax rate equaling approximately $138,339. The town of Louisville also collects a levy for a municipal service district. The current tax rate of 5 cents per $100 evaluation. The proposed tax rate for the municipal service district for the fiscal year 2020-2021 is unchanged at 5 cents per $100 evaluation. The town council has been diligent and used sound financial planning to continue its commitment to the citizens of Louisville to provide the highest standard of services. They have done this while maintaining a level of fund balance to secure future funding opportunities. The available fund balance was $6,306,112 as of June 30, 2019. This represents a fund balance of approximately 132.72% based on the projected upcoming fiscal year budget for 2020-2021. This measure is well within the guidelines established in the Comprehensive Financial Management Policy as adopted by the Town Council. Next section moves to the economy. Our country is experiencing a time of unprecedented uncertainty, at least in recent memory. A virus known as COVID-19 has created a global pandemic event. This event has created a period of economic activity unlike any seen in recent decades. Conditions and predictions for the future are changing quickly. The rapidly changing nature of the pandemic and the economic impacts of the resulting public health challenges have left economists and businesses scrambling to predict what this means for the future. In response to combating COVID-19, a number of emergency declarations, both at state and local levels, have closed schools, closed businesses deemed non-essential through statewide order, required most North Carolinians to quote-unquote stay at home. The state of the economy is obviously very much uncertain with a number of moving parts. All of the factors just mentioned have made predicting revenues for fiscal year 2020-2021 difficult and challenging, especially sales tax revenue, which is the town's second largest revenue source behind property tax. Per the North Carolina League of Municipalities, there is growing consensus that there will be a sharp economic decline in April through June 2020. It is expected that this period of business closures and increased unemployment will be followed by at least one more quarter of negative growth. The longer quote-unquote stay-at-home orders stay in effect, the more likely it becomes that the steepest period of economic decline could go beyond June. Unknowns include whether consumer spending will quickly rebound once social distancing measures and other restrictions are eased, or will unemployment caused by business closures cause consumers to hold back on spending for even longer. Only time will tell what impact this public health event will have on the long-term economic future of the state and the nation. In projecting the revenues for 2020-2021 budget, we have followed the guidance of the North Carolina League of Municipalities along with their researchers and economists. They have provided their most conservative projections for how our municipal revenues will emerge in the new fiscal year. As such, we are budgeting for significant declines in our sales tax revenue and investment earnings. The anticipated decline in revenues is coupled with an increase in service costs for several of our service contracts that had to be renegotiated for the next fiscal year. Budgeting for the economic uncertainty of our municipal revenues coupled with the increasing service costs has been a challenge. I would like to stress to Council that the revenue projection conversation this year will need to be an ongoing one as we see how the economy rebounds after the pandemic has ended. We have taken a conservative approach in putting together a budget for this fiscal year, but only time will tell how the economy will be affected in the long term. The town services stay committed to the continuation of all of its existing services for the upcoming fiscal year to include Parks and Recreation, Finance, Administration, Planning and Zoning, Public Works, Residential Garbage and Recycling, Stormwater Management, Community Policing, and Beautification. All services are proposed to continue at current service delivery levels for the upcoming fiscal year. The town has 4 capital reserve funds. Currently, annual appropriations for all of these funds total $405,000. At the Town Council planning session recently held on February 1st, Council reaffirmed its desire to proactively support the development of the downtown area, the road and the sidewalk improvements throughout the town, as well as its desire to develop future capital facilities such as the new community center. During fiscal year 2017-2018, the Town Council learned that the North Carolina Department of Transportation planned to assume financial responsibility for the remaining work to be done on the Great Wagon Road, to include design, right-of-way acquisition, and construction. As construction of the Great Wagon Road progresses, we anticipate that the town of Louisville will participate financially with the North Carolina Department of Transportation on enhancements such as sidewalks, trees, and streetlights, as well as design and installation of water and sewer infrastructure. The town currently has $933,686 saved in the Capital Reserve Fund and $734,227 available in the Great Wagon Road Right-of-Way Construction Capital Projects Fund. Between these funds, the Capital Reserve Fund, the funds in the Capital Reserve Fund and those in the Capital Projects Fund, the town has $1,667,913 to fund any future expenditures related to the Great Wagon Road. As mentioned earlier, rising service level costs. As mentioned earlier, budgeting for the 2020-2021 fiscal year has been made more difficult with uncertain revenues and rising service level costs. As such, the budget as proposed suspends its annual contribution to the Great Wagon Road Right-of-Way Construction Capital Reserve Fund of $115,000 during the 2020-2021 fiscal year. Doing so will allow the town to maintain its current service levels in the new fiscal year in light of the uncertain revenue estimates. The town's Stormwater Capital Reserve Fund is fast approaching its designated goal. The Capital Reserve Ordinance states that the town will continue to transfer $95,000 to the Capital Reserve until June 30, 2022, or until the Capital Reserve reaches a balance of $560,000. Only $25,825 is required to reach that goal. Thus, the budget, as proposed, reduces the contribution to the Stormwater Capital Reserve to $25,825 in the 2020-2021 budget. Budgeting for all of the capital reserves is as follows. Stormwater Capital Reserve, $25,825. GWR Right-of-Way Construction Capital Reserve, $0. Sidewalks, bike paths, greenways Capital Reserve, $25,000. And lastly, the Municipal Buildings Land Capital Reserve, $170,000. The total of all these comes to $220,825. These contributions changes have been made it possible to propose this budget as balanced for the fiscal 2020-2021.
Excuse me, Hank.
Yes.
Could you back up? You misspoke on the sidewalks, bike paths, and greenways. You said 5,000. It should be 25,000.
Okay. Yes. Sidewalks, bike paths, and greenways capital reserves, $25,000. Capital reserve projects that will remain during the fiscal year 2020-2021 are as follows. Active projects are Great Wagon Road right-of-way construction, Gateway Project, Heritage Drive Regional Stormwater Pond Number 1, Community Center, and the roundabout at Louisville, Vienna Road and Robin Hood Road. Non-active projects, Jack Warren Park Maintenance Facility and Playground Expansion. For the stormwater project, in order to keep up with the developments in the downtown area, the town decided to move forward with the suggestions made in the 2006 stormwater study. Council authorized the Heritage Drive Regional Stormwater Pond Number 1 Capital Projects Fund. The project authorized the purchase of land and or easements, design and engineering and construction of a BMP or best management practice, wet pond for stormwater treatment in the downtown area of the town of Louisville. The pond will be located just southwest of the intersection of Shellford Road and Heritage Drive. For the community center, in April 2019, the Town Council authorized the Community Center Capital Project Fund. The new community center will be financed using funds from the town's Municipal Buildings Land Capital Reserve Fund, installment financing, and transfers from the general fund as necessary. The town has engaged an architect firm to design the community center. Early costs estimates have the total cost of the project ranging from $5,048,000 to $5,295,000. The town plans to begin construction of the new community center in the upcoming fiscal year. For transportation projects, the town will continue design work on the Gateway project along with right-of-way and construction work in the upcoming fiscal year. This project is a roadway project to make improvements from the Highway 421 interchange on Williams Road, with improvements continuing on Williams Road between the interchange and the newly constructed roundabout at Shellford Road and Williams Road. This is a project utilizing federal STP-DA funds. This project has an estimated cost of approximately $1.5 million. The project will be paid for with 80% of the estimated cost coming from federal aid with a 20% match from the town. The town's contribution is expected to be $298,936. The town also has been awarded for the construction of a single-lane roundabout at Robin Hood Road and Louisville Vienna Road. This project will include necessary sidewalk connections at the roundabout and streetscapes, lighting, and landscape. The project has an estimated cost of approximately $1.27 million. The project will be paid for with 80% of the expected cost coming from federal aid with 20% match from the town. The town's contribution is expected to be approximately $254,000. The town has also been awarded funding for a CMAQ project to extend the sidewalk along Louisville Vienna Road from Riverwood Drive to Robin Hood Road. This project will be paid for with 80% of the expected cost coming from federal aid with 20% match from the town. The total cost of this project is estimated at $1,234,411, which includes the town's participation of $246,882. For planning, in the year 2017-2018 fiscal year, the Planning Board, working with staff and Town Council, completed a planning process that resulted in the presentation and acceptance by Council of the Northeast Area Plan. This plan has been years in development ahead of a new public school, middle school in the vicinity of the intersection of Louisville Vienna and Robin Hood Road. This new school is anticipated to have a significant impact on the growth and development of the northeast area of town. This plan serves as a template guide to help plan for and guide future development and transportation activities in this area. Now, for the Planning Board, the Parks and Recreation Board and Development Board and staff desire to engage in work related to two core project areas. The first area would be the redrafting of the town's comprehensive plan. The second area of work would be to reformat the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Development Master Plan. The budget as proposed contains funding to facilitate this work. In conclusion, this budget reflects the desire of council to address the needs of the town while being cognizant of economic conditions. Choices made and expenditures were done to meet the priorities and goals of the town council established during the year with the assistance of numerous advisory boards and committees. During the next few weeks, the town council will meet to deliberate the proposals set forth and make adjustments as needed. I would like to thank the staff for their assistance with the development of this budget and for the town council for their continued guidance and support. Final adoption of this budget will be scheduled for the council meeting in June. If I may be of any assistance, please feel free to contact. Sincerely, William H. Perkins, Jr. That concludes the message.
Very good, Hank. Thank you, Hank. Any questions for Hank at this point? Ladies and gentlemen, we will be going over this budget in a series of meetings. I can assure you that council members will look every item and try to make sure we understand exactly how we're spending your tax dollars. As we have in many past years, we hope you will acknowledge and certainly trust us to spend those dollars wisely. This is a big time for our town, and we invite those of you who would like to participate in coming in and sitting during those budget sessions. You're certainly welcome to, because they are public sessions. Now, we're going to try something a little different here. This is for our public participation in our public forum. I will put up a screen, but what unfortunately happens is that there's about a 2-minute lag, minute and a half lag, between the time that you see this and the time that you actually will be able to participate. So when this comes up on the screen, I'll see it, and then we'll just kind of wait a bit for you to be able to copy down those numbers and do the appropriate webinar address. And once these instructions come up on the screen, I'll elaborate a little more in the directions. We had hoped to have the lag in this, there we go, to comment during the public forum. Dial this number 1-312-626-6799. Jot that down if you would, because there'll also be another opportunity to participate at the end of the meeting in a public comment period. So that number is 1-312-626-6799. You'll be asked to enter a webinar number. That webinar number is 960-090-242. Then enter pound when asked. Webinar number 960-090-242 with pound following that. You'll be put on hold until we open the public comment section. At that time, you'll be recognized to participate. I'm going to leave this up for a moment, and we'll see if we have anybody calling in. Give it time again. Once again, we're allowing some time for lag here because we are not instantaneously going from the meeting itself to TV6. There's a bit of a lag time here. Mr. Perkins, you can tell me if we're receiving any calls. And while we do that, Mrs. Walker, I believe you do have a comment that was sent in by a resident. Would you like to read that at this point as part of our public comment section?
I will. This is from Ken Baker at 1637 South Marblehead Road in Louisville, and he has asked that this be read. In 2019, there was concern expressed that some developers of new subdivisions in the town were clearing most of the trees in the grading or site preparation phase. At a fall council meeting, this topic was discussed, and as I recall, it was suggested that this should be addressed by the town and developers be required to preserve at least some of the trees on the site. If I recall, this policy was to be adopted soon. On October 16th, I wrote an email to Mayor Horn regarding the Belgrove subdivision and mentioned the clearing of trees on this heavily wooded tract of land. Mayor Horn responded on October 17th, and I quote, "Currently, our planner is working to develop specific requirements for tree preservation, which can be incorporated into our UDO," end quote. I would like to ask if there have been any changes made to the UDO yet. If not, is this still something the town plans to do? And there may be timeline you could share for this to happen, or perhaps I missed the fact that this has already been done. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And that's from Ken Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Baker, for that comment. Again, this is a comment period. It's not really a question and answer period. It's for our opportunity to listen to you and listen to your comments. I believe, however, though, our town planner, Ms. Talbert, that is on the planning board's agenda. I'm not sure what the timetable is on that, but it is in the hopper to be considered by the planning board. Is that correct? I noticed by her, she is muted, but by her nod of her head, I'm assuming that that's the affirmative. Very good.
Yes, that is the affirmative. I apologize.
Thank you very much.
And working with LBC.
And working with Louisville Beautification Committee, correct.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Hank, do we have any calls that have come in?
No, sir. There has been no one who's called in.
Very good. Then we're going to go ahead and move on from the first comment period. Again, let me remind you, there'll be another one at the end of this meeting. So keep that number handy, keep that webinar meeting number handy. And we'll put it up again toward the end of the meeting so there'll be another opportunity for you to participate. With that, we have no appointments this evening, no public hearings this evening, no annexation reports, preliminary site plan approvals, unfinished business. It takes us to new business. And Mrs. Welch, you have a report from the Grants Committee. Ms. Welch, I think you'll need to unmute yourself. Mr. Manager, can you unmute her?
I got it.
There we go. Thank you, Jane.
Okay, thank you. Yes, the Grants Committee has met, and I want to certainly thank Councilmember Hunt and Councilmember Smitherman as part of our three-person committee for grants. And we did receive a grant request from Senior Services. In the past, Senior Services has received $4,000 from us. I'm sorry, yes, $4,000 from us, because we had approximately now 10 to 15 individuals receiving Meals on Wheels. That has been an increase since their last request. And in speaking with the director, he had asked for the amount of $6,000 because the council had in the past given $5,000. So in line with that, he had suggested an additional $1,000. Now, as the three of us met and discussed the needs, knowing that there were actually 10 to 15 people in need for Senior Services and the Meals on Wheels, we had discussed increasing the amount of the request to $9,000. And I would like for Councilmember Hunt, if you would, to explain how we came up with that figure, since it was your suggestion.
Thank you, Jane. So we took the calculation of the average per year that it requires to feed a individual in the town of Louisville through the Senior Services Program, and multiplied it by, David, and you may have to remind me here, was it 6 individuals? Does that sound right, David? Okay, all right. So we just took the annual amount and divided it, or multiplied it by 6 individuals, and felt that we would contribute and be able to feed 6 of the 10 that are currently in the town of Louisville. Is that accurate, Jane?
Yes.
Is that what you want to...
Yes, thank you. That was taken into consideration that we would increase the amount, especially in this day and time of the virus and the implications that have come with that, with the needs for our community. So that is our proposal for the council to further discuss, that we as the Grants Committee would like to propose $9,000 in a grant to Senior Services.
Could I just clarify one thing? Ms. Welch mentioned that our donation in the past has been $4,000. The last 2 years, the donation has actually been $6,000 from the town.
Okay.
Thank you, Pam.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Sadler? Probably, yeah, there you go, Keith.
I was muted. For clarity, did you say the request, how much was the request for?
The request was for $6,000.
Do you know how they arrive at the amount of the request? Is it just based on historical experience, or do they do some calculation to make a determination as to what's needed? Do you know?
They said, the director said that request came because of what the town has given in the past.
Okay.
And the actual expense for someone to receive Meals on Wheels for a year is $1,500, or approximately $6 per meal.
Right, right.
So the agenda,
Ms. Foster? Thank you.
So the agenda references that the 6,000 would feed 4 homebound Louisville seniors for 1 year. That's correct?
Yes, approximating, yes.
Okay. And then, but there was a reference that there are 10 to 15. Well, what, I missed that. What was the reference to the 10 to 15 individuals?
Yeah, in talking with the director, we actually service 10 to 15 in Louisville.
However, Jean Marie,
Ms. Hunt, yes, thank you.
I think just to kind of piggyback on that, Senior Services does service currently, from Jane's conversation, 10 to 15 residents. And one of the things we took into consideration is their potential that they may be receiving services along from other sources. And so we felt that us impacting 60% of that and offering 60%, and then they can make up the other 40-ish% from another organization potentially. Obviously, we don't know if they would be granted the money from other organizations, but that was one thing that we took into consideration.
Any other questions for Ms. Welch? Dr. Sadler?
We started this a number of years ago, and I don't really remember what the rationale was for us, or how we arrived at the amount we would contribute. So I guess, I mean, I understand the desire to help folks, and I want to do that too. I'm unclear how we got to where we are, and whether we're using the same rationale now or a different rationale for making the award. Fred, do you recall?
Back when I was on the committee, what I remember is basically when they would come to us with their request, we would fulfill their request, and we didn't go into going above and beyond the request and so forth. So there was not a whole lot of discussion, not a whole lot of rationale and pricing and so forth and so on. It was just if they made the request for X amount of dollars, and I think when it started, it may have been 5 or maybe even 4, but it has increased through the years because I know the need has increased,
Okay.
We just, pretty much the ones that was involved way back when made the request. If it seemed like a valid request, which it always was, we would just approve their request amount.
Yeah, and I suspect the need has increased over time as well. I just couldn't remember clearly, because I think I participated with you from time to time on that committee as well. So, okay, that's all from me.
Ms. Foster?
So based on the fact that Pam has clarified that we have given 6,000 in the past, and that our subcommittee has made a recommendation, I will make a motion to approve what the committee has put forth for the ordinance 2020-019.
In the amount of $9,000.
Thank you.
Is there a second? Dr. Sadler makes the second.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Welch, Mrs. Hunt, and Mr. Smitherman for your work on that committee.
Thank you.
Hank, I believe you have the next item on our agenda, the AV design services for the community center.
Yes, the mayor and I have been talking with Clark Powell, who is the same vendor that works with us here at Town Hall for our various audiovisual equipment, the ones that we use for TV6, as well as the equipment downstairs at the council chambers. We are using them as the town's contractor for our work to be done on the future community center. And what they've got going right now is that the Clark Powell will be engaged in design services to help us with the future AV needs. They will be developing a budget for the project that we will ultimately have to agree upon. But as a part of that, they need a pretty much sort of a down payment or retainer in order to be able to get started with the design work and the commitment of time. And what we wanted to make sure is that council is aware that we have this project going and that we're working with Clark Powell on this project. The amount of money to be paid now is $3,200. We certainly have that within the capital projects ordinance for the proposed community center. We just bring this up for council knowledge and consideration. This cost will be deducted from, and it is already a part of the overall cost support estimate for the AV system in the future. This is not on top of that cost. This is a part of that cost. We're just paying a portion of that cost now.
Hank, let me add to that. I think council members, we took, I guess the architect just took a reasonable guess of what our AV needs would be in the new community center. I think when we sat down and looked at what the various uses would be, we found that the AV was going to cost us more. So they will wire or they're design wiring, and we will wire on the initial construction for all of our future needs. We may not be able to afford everything the first year, and we may have to add it as we go along, but at least in the future we'll be wired and we won't have to reoccur that cost again. Now, we have asked our state legislator, our state senator, our state house member, if they will find or assist us in finding some money in the legislature to help pay for our AV equipment. I think it was looking very optimistic until the beginning of March, and the game has changed quite a bit. But the good news is we have this short budget year, we have next budget year, and we have the following budget year to hopefully get some assistance for our AV needs. We'll be back to you, I think, with what we think we can afford for the council to look at, and then as we move forward, we can always add additional pieces of equipment, but the wiring will be in place to do that.
This evening, we require nothing from the council other than the knowledge of the council and the general consent that the council is aware of this and is fine with it, as far as spending the $3,200 as down payment for Clark Powell.
Any questions, folks? Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
At our briefing, I believe it was maybe Mrs. Hunt and maybe Mrs. Foster and maybe several other people when we approved the dollars to do demolition work on the house that's on the property at our future community center site, that we try to find something maybe that we could, an artifact that we could preserve and keep and incorporate into the new community center. Ryan and I went over there first part of the week, and we stumbled through the building, and we went upstairs and downstairs and into the basement and all around the house. Unfortunately, the house has been remodeled since its original construction, so there's not a whole lot left from when the house was first built. The one thing we did find that might be very interesting are the chimneys, and the chimneys are the original brick. So our intention, with the consent of council, is as the house is being demolished, that we try to recover as many of the bricks as possible, go ahead and clean them up, get the mortar off of them, and then find a section of the sidewalk around the new community center that we'll put in as kind of a memorial or a artifact of the house, and with a little plaque that says where the bricks came from. I don't see this as an extensive brick project, but I would think 4, 5, 6 feet in the sidewalk to remember the original construction. That's kind of where we are. Is that satisfactory for those folks who had requested that?
Thank you.
It is.
We took a look at the mantle places, and they're circa 1950 probably versus when the house was first built.
And again, it was.
Foster, I'm sorry.
Thank you. It wasn't that it was coming necessarily from me. I think it's a good idea and I support it. It was something that several citizens had mentioned at some previous meetings, so I was just sharing what they had requested. Thanks.
Thank you for delivering that message. We probably wouldn't have thought about it and just looked at the house and said, well, there's not much there, but I think we found a fitting and really cool way to incorporate some of the original structure into our new community center.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Hank, you have a contract for us to look at for tree protection area.
Actually, this is a budget amendment, an amendment to amend budget ordinance 2019001 in an amount of $1,724 to contract for tree protection at 7632 Warren Park Drive. This will be for our arborist that we've been working with to go out, do some barricade fencing and mulching around the 3 oak trees in the front of the house to protect them from, I guess, the demolition work and damage during any of the construction for the community center itself. We will also be taping off to make sure that we can protect a magnolia in the back of the house and reserve it so that it is an option for council to consider incorporating into the community center in the future as the project moves forward as well.
Mr. Moser, I believe we have gone off the air.
Okay, let me go check on it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So we'll pause here in a second. I'm not sure how long it will take us to get back on there, but we will. If you all have gone out and walked that property, there are some spectacular magnolia trees there that are easily 80, 85 years old. I think they can be spectacular additions to the park itself, and we'll try to preserve as many of those as we can in addition to the big oaks that sit in the front yard there.
So the
Yes, Ms. Foster.
so the arborist identified the trees. Is that what their involvement was?
Yeah, that's part of the whole process, to identify the trees that are healthy enough. I mean, obviously, we don't want to go ahead and save a tree that's going to die in 10 years. So they've looked at the longevity of the trees. They'll identify the ones that we should be saving, and then they'll mark off a safe area for them. So when we start construction, we won't disturb the root systems. And the magnolias starting in 2 weeks should be blooming. So if you want to go down there and see something really special, it's pretty cool. But don't go onto the property. Do it from a distance, please. Okay, TV6 is still not with us yet. Mr. Half, what is your recommendation here? Should we go ahead and move on?
I think we should pause right now.
Yeah, because I think there's some things that we want to make sure that the public will be able to see. I'm trying to look to see. Hank, did we get any, I'm trying not to be out of turn here, but did we ever get any requests for public forum input?
No, there's no one there.
Okay. And I thought we might could fill in with some of that, but
All right, I see a black screen.
okay.
Oh, hold
Soon
on.
to be back up. My hemming and hawing helped.
Ain't still nothing on Facebook.
No, I haven't tried.
Folks, as you're seeing this, will be 2.5 minutes after we actually said it, but we are pausing at this particular point to allow for TV6 to come back up again. So there is a bit of a lag. We ask your patience and indulgence. We promise we'll do better next meeting to make sure all of our equipment is working and we don't have these downtimes. I guess watching a town council meeting is tedious enough without having to tolerate these long pauses and us looking at each other. Although we have very pleasant people to look at, I might say. So.
Email you a screenshot for the Facebook and see if any of that looks familiar.
All right. Okay, it appears we are back up. Excellent. Okay, Hank, you would like to go back, and I think we went off the air as you just began to describe that ordinance.
Okay. You definitely see us, Mayor?
Yes, I see.
Okay.
There'll be a lag before we come up. Yeah, I see us.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Where are we then?
If you go back and just recap a little bit of the ordinance 2020-020.
Okay.
I think that's where we cut out.
Okay. We have a budget ordinance. It's ordinance 2020 020, amending budget ordinance 2019-001 in an amount of $1,724 to contract for tree protection, the area of trees, the big oak trees at 7632 Warren Park Drive. This, of course, is to protect the large oak trees in front of the current house so they can be maintained for the future proposed community center project.
Very good. Council members, any question for the manager?
No. Motion to approve.
Ms. Foster makes the motion. Mrs. Hunt makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you. Ms. Walker, you have the next two items, I believe, on our calendars.
She's mute.
Mute. You're muted.
Ms. Walker, turn on your, you muted yourself. There we go.
I'm just used to talking.
We're aware of that.
In the March meeting, I believe we had changed our calendar in anticipation of attending the NCLM conference in May. So we had changed some things to go along with that schedule. Now that the conference has been canceled, we're going back to our normal meeting schedule. So we have to bring that to council so that you can approve that. And if you will look at the information I sent out on that council change, I did make a note that council is meeting electronically until further notice, until you tell us when we're going to be, or the governor or the president tells us we will be going back into session. So that I need for you to approve that, if you will. And along with that, I have changed the budget meeting schedule so that it falls back to the original dates without other things going on.
Very good. Ms. Hunt?
Joyce, can you just mentioned budget. We've got a meeting on Monday, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. What time is it starting?
Starts at 6
Not AM, PM, correct?
p.m. And if you go down and look at the packet, when I sent the packet out, I think I have those times, not just the days, but the times also, so that you would have the right information.
Thank you.
I don't know, Mrs. Hunt, some of our budget meetings run really long, so we may start at 6. Ms. Foster?
I just want to make sure I'm clear then. So Joyce, you're referencing material that you sent in the packet last week. Okay, thank you.
Yes. And I will be, and once you all approve this, then next week, I will be sending this out to our group, and Jeannie will be putting it on our website. And I guess this is a good reminder, we will not be at work tomorrow. Tomorrow is a holiday for us.
Thank you. Mr. Howell?
Yes, while we're on the topic of meetings and calendar changes, et cetera, and in light of all that's going on with COVID and changes to meetings and all of this sort of thing, it might be appropriate to just simply note here that all future meetings, whether they're budget meetings, whether they're regular briefing meetings, or special meetings, that we should give notice that not only the items that might be shown on a proposed agenda or a notice, but also any other business that might come before the council might be considered during those meetings. That way, we'll have some flexibility, and we want to make sure that the public's aware that that any number of items might be considered during the meetings.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Howell. Any questions from Ms. Walker? Entertain a motion to adopt the new budget. Oh, yes, sir. I'm sorry, Hank.
Mr. Smitherman asked me a question earlier this evening. I suggested he take his question up at the end near council comments. This may be a better opportunity for Mr. Smitherman to ask his question.
Germane to the calendar dates.
Yes.
Very good. Mr. Smitherman.
Okay, so my question was, since we've gone to this live meeting and we're having to infringe on our family a little bit, could we possibly think about on the Thursday night we normally meet at 7:30 that we would meet at 6:30, just bump it up an hour?
Which date? Let me move my screen back. Hold on one second.
I think he's contemplating the regular council meetings for the next
Right.
2 or 3 months.
That's up to council. You tell me
Right.
what you want to do.
Council, any thoughts? Ms. Welch,
I have no problem with that.
anyone else? Ms. Foster?
I have no problem with that.
Since my bedtime is 8:30, I feel good about that too.
Okay, so actually, the only meeting that we will have to do that for will be the regular meeting in June. So that I will change to 6 o'clock.
What about the May?
What do I have for May? Everything in May I have at 6.
The regular meeting in May is at 6?
I think our budget meeting starts at 6.
But I'm talking budget. The regular.
Council
Okay,
meeting.
got it.
We have the budget
Okay,
schedule,
got it.
but I'll fix the other to
Okay.
go along with it. If you're just talking budget, right?
No, ma'am,
Not regular.
we're talking council meeting.
Everything.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I will fix everything to be 6 o'clock.
Bo, do we need a motion?
No, I think, no,
Let me,
no.
we'll clarify this in just a moment. Do we need a motion on this, Bo, or can we do it by consensus?
You will need a motion.
Okay, very good. So, yes, sir. The motion that I believe Mr. Smithern would make, and if he'll grant me the liberty to restate it, is due to family considerations, and since we're doing these meetings video conferencing, he would like to move our regular council meeting from its ordinarily 7:30 start time to 6 o'clock to better accommodate those of us with families and accommodate their needs. Mr. Houff?
And perhaps just to modify that motion, say, for so long as those meetings are to be conducted remotely.
Very good. We'll accept that amendment, Mr. Smith.
The only thing,
Mr.
the
Franklin?
only thing, go ahead, Frank.
I thought I heard David say that 6:30, not 6 o'clock.
Yes, 6:30 is what I heard as well.
That's what I heard, 1 hour earlier for
1 hour earlier?
for the regularly scheduled meeting, not 6 o'clock. That's what I
David,
thought I heard.
did I mishear you on that?
That's fine. I mean, I would, the earlier the better. If everyone's in agreement till 6, that's fine too. It doesn't necessarily have to be 6:30. You know, 7:30 gets late.
Okay. So folks, council members, what's your pleasure, 6 or 6:30?
6.
Oh, Yeah, I was going to say, let's just be standard about it. If everything else is set up for 6, let's do the May, at least the May meeting at 6 o'clock, and then the June meeting if we're still having to do these teleconference meetings.
Okay.
Very good.
But make everything 6.
Point of
Ms. Hunt?
clarification for the clerk. The May meeting, when does that start with the budget meeting ahead of?
The budget meeting that I have for May, the first one is May 7th at 6 o'clock.
No, is there a council budget meeting ahead of the, or, no, it doesn't. The regular meeting is not a problem.
No.
I got my answer problem.
Ms. Hunt?
I was just gonna make the motion if we had not, and I can restate it to Bo's liking if needed.
Very good. So the restated motion is that we move our council meetings for as long as we shall be meeting via video conference. We would change our meeting times to 6 o'clock on the second Thursday of every month. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Ms. Hunt makes a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Smithern, for that suggestion. Now, we do have to go back and, I believe, have did we approve the calendar dates?
I'm sorry.
Did we approve the new calendar dates? That was
I
kind
don't
of,
think we did.
I don't know, that was kind of
No.
dangling
I'll
out.
make a motion to go ahead and approve those new calendar dates.
Mr. Franklin makes a motion. Is there a second? Ms. Foster makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous as well. Okay, well, let's continue. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we're sorry for the technical difficulties. We'll work through these and hopefully, most assuredly, we'll have them worked out for our next council meeting. While we were interrupted, we did take two motions, and let me recap those for you briefly. We took a motion we passed a motion to move our regularly scheduled council meetings, which is the second Thursday of every month, regularly starting at 7:30. We're going to move that back to 6 o'clock. for the convenience of those of us with families, and to not go so late in the evening. We'll do that until we actually reconvene for our in-person meetings. Second motion that we took up was to change our meeting dates for our council meetings and our budget sessions that we had moved for some of our council members to attend the League of Municipalities conference. That conference was canceled, so we have moved those dates back to their original dates. And you can check on our website. Mrs. Walker will have those changes up there, and we'll all be fair and square. Okay, Hank, Shallowford Square, please.
All right, we don't have anything at Shallowford Square. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We have a closing for tomorrow, as was mentioned, for Good Friday, and we only had one more thing planned for April. There was a movie night later in the month, and that has since been canceled given the current situation.
Okay. Very good. We know all of us look forward to summertime and fall when we have our wonderful events in the square. I'm missing those. I know many of our residents are too, but we as soon as we're able to gather again in large numbers, we'll continue them. Hank, we're to your manager report, and I think the first item on the agenda is the Part F grant.
Yes, okay. What we have for this evening's consideration, originally we talked about having a capital improvement program for Shallowford Square and Community Center and Jack Warren Park. We were not able to get that for us. We'll be engaged in that on Monday when we take it up at our budget meeting. But we do have, let's see here. Okay, we do have some materials for you to consider this evening. Waiting in the wings, and I'm going to go ahead and bring them on, are Mr. Mike Norris and Jim Ford. They are with our contractors, McGill and Associates, who are helping us with the preparation of our Part F application for this upcoming round. Wait for them to get in and sign. Bill up here. There's that one. There's Jim Ford.
Hey, Jim.
Hi, how is everybody?
Yeah.
Did we wake you up?
It's almost my bedtime.
Okay, Mr. Norris is with us, but he apparently doesn't have camera capability. So, Jim, go ahead and lead us through what we've got. I've got the site plan and the budget that we have been discussing between you, me, and Mike.
Okay, great. I think it would be really important to start with by saying how fantastic the public input has been regarding what kind of proposed improvements we want to show as part of this Part F grant and project. Had about 888 participants take the survey in lieu of public meetings. That data has informed the site plan concepts. And Hank, I'm not sure if you've shared the site plan with everybody.
I've got it to share right now.
Okay, great.
I'll get it up. There it is. All right.
Okay. Let's see here. So from that survey, there's a number of things that stand out as desires from the community, the survey participants. What we've done here is tried to figure out what would be the most appropriate elements to add, because you want to have enough elements as part of your application such that application scores well. It's competitive. This is a competitive process, part of it. And so what we're showing in green on this map are those elements that would be considered new and your grant money would go to pay part of, because it is a matching grant. Those items in orange are, like they say, they're future. They may be part of a future phase. You wouldn't have to build those with money. For those not familiar with Jack Warren Park, that's the parcel to the north there and west. And this grant includes the donated portion to the south, there, that's the 15 acres where the community center is going to be located. Now, with the community center, there are two elements that are going to score as amenities part of would consider. Those would be the art and activity room and the multi-purpose rooms. You get points for having those. You really need to have 3 strong amenities. I think those two combined with the trail system, that would include the half mile or so of natural nature trail there, and the disc golf course. You've got some major elements. Also included, though, is a natural playground to go along with the existing playground. A natural playground, the playground that stimulates the senses more. It has trees and movable objects like large stones. There may be a garden associated with that to stimulate, visual and your sense of smell. Looking at this, Hank, I think it'd be important to talk about what this could cost. If you could pull up the cost estimate.
Okay.
If anybody has any questions, feel free to jump in. I'll answer those regarding the site plan. But I'd like to look at the meat of this.
Okay. There it is.
What? Okay. I don't see it yet.
Jim, while he's transitioning, I have a question. This is Melissa.
Sure.
The nature trail that you're referring to, does that connect into the existing trail that's there?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
It does. So that'll give you an opportunity to, in the future, put up perhaps educational signage that's more based on nature of the area.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask a question, Mike.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, you weren't on my screen, so please.
Okay, yeah, just relative to that nature trail. So I pulled up the Forsyth County GIS. The nature trail, obviously, per its moniker, is to be in nature. There's a lot of trees that would have to come down. Looking at all of that, those little squiggles are identified as the golf.
Sure. So let me,
yeah, can you talk a little bit about that just briefly before we look at the
yes.
item on the screen?
We have the nature trail, which keep in mind that this is a set of construction documents. This isn't a design that you would build directly from.
Sure.
It's meant more to say what element are you proposing, roughly where would it go. So you're looking at disc golf trails, which you would want to maintain any trees. Matter of fact, a lot of folks who are familiar with that, and some folks here may be, you kind of want to work in among the trees, not the trees up disc golf. Well, there may need to be a tree here and there around the trail that may not be safe to leave. That would have to be decided when you actually have a plan that to build from. So this is purely planning level at this time.
Okay, thank you. Well, obviously, I don't play a lot of 18-hole disc golf. I had no idea that trees were involved, so thank you for that.
Sure.
Jim?
Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to add, this is Mike Norris with McGill also, and the nature of this planning process is a lot of the elements we see there will be and can be massaged later on, particularly when you start into development of a park. But to reaffirm what Jim just mentioned, a lot of the nature trail of this type and the disc golf would be, in many cases, laid out on site versus on a piece of paper. So we would try to preserve some of this natural vegetation and work around that to actually enhance that whole that area there.
Gentlemen, let me ask a question if I could. Had a chance to go through the survey, and congratulations on the response that we had. But unless I didn't calculate it right, or not calculate it, pay attention closely, disc golf was not one of the high items on the priority list that the residents indicated they wanted.
It was at 26%.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there were a number of other items on that list that were ranked higher than that.
Yeah. One of them being the splash pad was at 49%, and we've got that listed in the orange, which would lead me to think that would be a future phase. However, the surveyed residents have indicated, at least 49.58% of them have indicated that that would be something they'd be interested in.
Right. Likewise with the amphitheater, it's high up. It was, I think, was it 2 or 3, Melissa?
The amphitheater is 46.26, so it's 3.
Where did our dog,
And that's,
I'm sorry, excuse me.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I jumped in.
And tonight we're here just to present a plan with presenting all the different elements that could be here. And there are a variety of amenities as well as cost. So we can discuss a number of these and determine what you feel like would be that's appropriate for this first phase, or excuse me, I guess this would be a second phase really, and then and what might be a future phase. And then a lot of this is a balancing act as far as what might be appropriate for funding. And so this is, in our mind, we wanted to present this for discussion.
Yeah, I guess the question I have, and Dr. Sadler, you were on the Part F board for a while, but once we indicate an amenity and we build the amenity, then we're stuck with that amenity. We can't reuse that land for anything else. Is that my recollection correct?
You have to build out what you say you're going to build out. The question I had, though, in relationship to preferences versus what is shown is just relative cost.
Yeah, I think it's a big consideration. I guess. I'm sorry.
Before we go to the cost.
Ms. Foster. I'm guessing that was Ms. Foster.
Is it Mike? Mr. Norris?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm having a hard time hearing you. You sound a little sort of muffled. Just
okay.
FYI.
I'll get a little bit closer, I guess.
Okay, thanks.
I guess, as we continue, I appreciate the way this looks. I think it's great. It's fabulous. It's going to be very, very exciting to have this expansion on the park. But, we went through this process, and as Dr. Sadler pointed out, it's weighing out the benefits of cost versus having amenities that are going to score well.
Right.
But I'm just a little concerned that we may not have taken into consideration the items that are ranked high on the resident survey.
Well, the good news is they're there. It's just maybe changing some of the coloration and including them in the Part F request versus future phase.
One thing, Hank, are you able to show those screens side by side, the map and the cost? Because I think
I don't think I can do that.
And do we have any of this we've got this sent to us, or?
Yes, it was sent this evening to you.
Okay.
I think what happens here, folks, is we've got everything in there covered. A lot of it, I guess the only thing we don't have that was mentioned in it, a lot of the mention was, as you've read it, there was a lot of emphasis on dog friendly to the entire place. There was some mention of a dog park. Of course, splash pad is a very popular thing, but as McGill and Associates will tell you, splash pads are very popular on any type of survey that you do for this thing. If there is something that you want to do, if you wanted to switch out and say you didn't want to do one and do the other, we can certainly do that. And Mike and Jim can work with us on revising the plan, but there will be a puzzle put together to get the numbers right, to be able to get the amenities that the council desires in line with the budget targets that we're trying to hit with the trust fund.
Understand.
Yep.
Hey.
Ms. Hunt.
Regarding, so if there's amenities that are included, does that help us with the scoring or is it just kind of the overall, help me understand that a little bit clearer?
Well, you get a certain amount of points for the amenities that you put in. You get more points for things that you're going to put into the plan that you don't already have. For instance, we've got, we don't have anything related to disc golf. So as the scoring goes on the application, we would get more points for things for the disc golf than we would if we were going to do another paved walking trail because we already have that in the backside of Jack Warren Park.
Oh.
Yes, go ahead.
And so along those same lines, since residents indicated number 2 being splash pad, for example, because we do not currently have a splash pad, therefore we would get more points considered since there's no current splash pad, right?
As long as you're not trading out the splash pad for something that is also new.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'd like to just give a brief, some of the things we've been thinking about is, as far as this Part F application would be, would be developed, the main amenity is the recreation center. And so you have what would be in there would be activity rooms and multi-purpose rooms. That's 2 amenities that would be new to this park. So maximize your part, the Part F grants are points driven. The more points you have, the better your grant looks. You maximize your points by having 3 new amenities versus like amenities. We're not going to get any more points by having another picnic shelter. So we've got most of these amenities that we are showing are new to this park. The amphitheater, the splash pad, the community center, the disc golf, and even the pickleball courts. So we can consider all these. One of the unique things about this particular application is that you have donated land that can be used as a match. And I believe, is that $387,000 is the value?
That is correct.
So this total project with these amenities that are obviously in excess of well over $5 million. So for a grant application through North Carolina Parks and Recreation Trust Fund, it's a dollar for dollar match, as many of you may know, and it's a up to a $500,000 match would be the maximum request amount. But $387,000 could be used as a value for that land donation. I think when we go through these cost estimates, you can see there's the splash pad of this nature would likely be a recirculating system. You would have to, for those of you who may not be familiar with the recirculating systems with the splash pad, it's like the same system as you would have as a pool. It's going to have a treatment system, and you'll have to have your own mechanical rooms. I guess what I'm saying is they can get fairly costly. So that's just a factor in consideration of how much do you want to spend now. What are some amenities that, obviously we've got 2 amenities with the recreation center. Technically with 1 new amenity, you would be maximizing that points value. You could still add a number of amenities, but you are committing, if you get the grant, you are committing to have to build those. Versus you could still build those, but you're not going to get a match with any amenity that you build beyond that, if that makes sense.
Council, I think go ahead, Ms. Hunt.
So if we take a look at the amenities that were surveyed, and we take off the ones that we don't currently have, that leaves the top 3, splash pad, amphitheater, and disc golf. Those would be the top 3 that we currently do not have in place, that our residents indicated on the survey that was important to them. And just kind of looking, actually the top came back at natural surface trails and nature play area, but those will be kind of taken off for points if we're looking at it from that. And I think from my viewpoint, I'm very appreciative of the residents taking the time to complete the survey, and I want to really hold true to making sure that we put that in. cost and everything else taken into consideration, but that's just my initial snapshot of it and viewpoint.
Alyssa,
Yes, sir.
can you say again those top ones again?
Sure. So the top three that are not current amenities that the residents indicated were splash pad, amphitheater, and then disc golf.
Okay, we do have disc golf proposed in this phase.
Sure.
Did the dogs not rank up there among the top three?
They're not on this one Q12, which is question 12. They're not listed on there as a.
Yeah, I've got a question about that, guys.
Yeah, Ms. Foster?
And bear with us, Jim and Mike, because we got this recently. You guys did some great work. We appreciate it.
Excuse me, Jim. Hank, would you bring us up to a full screen of council members, please?
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, I'm looking at the Q12 that Melissa's talking about. And so what this is it's the report that you all put together looking at how many folks had responded, right? And so what I'm not following, I'm looking at what that report and I'm looking at the survey and remembering the survey that I took. So I remember this is directed to James and Jim and Mike. So I remember a question about that showed pictures. Which of these pictures would be your top three? And there were a limited number of those pictures. I think I'm remembering maybe 12 or something. Is that about right?
That's correct.
But then on this, there was a survey question that I missed completely that had a whole lot of other line item questions that was pick your 1 through 5, right? Rank 1 through 5.
Right, so that was an open-ended where if you didn't see a photo of something that would have ranked high traditionally, you would have the ability to write that in. And so it shows, right, everything.
Okay, so what I'm trying to wrap my brain around is the Q12 question, which is what I honed in on because I saw that as, that's what everyone is ranking as to their preference. But is that coming from the picture list or from the 1 through 5 list, which was much more comprehensive?
No, that's Q12, the photos. That's your photo preference, right?
Right.
So the things we would typically see are more traditional than the others. Now, you don't want to leave anything out, so you do have that other option where it's a write-in and your report shows the top 5 from there. And in there, Dog Park did rank, I think, in the top 6 or 7.
And Mr. Ford, what question number was that?
13.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Sadler.
How did you all arrive at your recommendations as to what would be included in your design there?
Originally, we started out with, we looked at your old plan, but also met with staff to figure out what were some of the amenities they had heard they would be interested in. And also, we do a lot of work in the area with other communities. So we kind of have an idea of what's trending that people might want to see on there.
You know, this may be a mischaracterization, but it seems like we kind of put the cart before the horse. We decided on the amenities that we were going to ask about before we asked the question of what's important to the residents.
Right, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, I mean, at least that's kind of where the direction it looked like to me.
So traditionally, we would have done a public meeting where we would have had a couple boards to warm people's ideas up, to get them thinking. That visual preference exercise is question 12 here. The idea being, let's get them to see things that they may likely be interested in. Let's get them thinking about everything that they really want to see. Then on question 13, where they would get to actually write in those ideas. Because there's really no way to know exactly what you should put on those boards. And you can't have 500 pictures on there offered. It would just be overwhelming. So the idea is, let's look at some pictures. Let's get people thinking in the mood, get them thinking about recreation, what some of these things look like. They think to themselves, hey, You know, when I was growing up, I remember this amenity or that amenity. I need a place to write that in, and that's where 13. So I actually like the data from 13 better because it is open-ended.
So I'd like to ask a question to the council. As far as the layout, the overall park master plan, whether proposed now or future, how does the layout sit with you as far as the relationship with other amenities and whether existing or proposed, whether now or future?
Hey, can you throw that back up there for me? I think you got a lot accomplished.
Because whether it's proposed now or later, those elements are still flexible. We're this is for discussion just to show you what could be as part of this Part F grant application. When we started on this, there was the Part F grant application was due May 1. We found out last week earlier this week they'd extended that another month, another 31 days to June 1.
That's new information.
That's new information.
So that just came out recently. It gives us a little more time, but you've got a unique opportunity with the land donation. That's a one-time shot. So we want to take advantage of that as much as we can. With that $387,000 that can be used for that. What we want to do is make the grant application as successful as possible. I think if you choose disc golf or splash pad or amphitheater or all of the above, those are great elements, and those would make a nice complement to the recreation center that you're moving forward on. So if you felt it's important that what you see there and what you want, and a part of those amenities have to be there 25 years. That's the life expectancy for that amenity if it receives funding.
Mike, here's the question, and Melissa, I think maybe you were going down that road when we first talked a little while ago. Should we not, since we have this extra month, should we not go back and look at question 13 and maybe do a tally of what residents recommended that they would like to see and kind of incorporate that into our thinking of design? It just seems like we've, as they say, we've led the witness rather than kind of let the witness testify. That's a bad lawyer analogy, but that's okay. Just kind of live with it.
But can I suggest something? Yeah, Melissa, you read out that. Is there anything on here that you want to substitute? Because that's what it is. We only have a maximum of $500,000 in assistance that we can ask. It has been recommended to us by Part F not to ask for $500,000. So this is on a 50-50 match. So they don't, even if we ask for $500,000, certainly if we put everything out here, it's going to be well in excess of, it'll increase the budget a lot. So I do feel like the project has to be multi-phased. So is there something that you would want to remove from this phase and substitute it with something else based on the survey that you read?
Yeah, great question, Hank. I'm going to go to Mike's. Mike had asked, did we like the layout of what we're seeing so far? Mike, and I think for me, the answer to that is, it looks nice, but I think we do need to Mayor Horn's point, I think we need to go back and look at it and put in what we really are interested in. To your question, Hank, I would like to know what kind of numbers we're looking at on the future splash pad, since that was the first concern or first thing the residents wanted. When we take off what we've already got there, and then those other two items. So if we take those top three items, so to speak,
what's the cost on those?
Okay.
So you got the the
So
splash pad, you got the amphitheater,
splash
and
pad.
the disc golf. What's the pricing, or what's the cost?
Okay. Well, part of the nature trail that you see there is kind of a 2-for-1, because you need the nature trail to connect to some of the disc golf holes. So you're going to have some type of access, whether they're that's just a combined amenity there. I mean, you're getting two amenities, but
Where's the dogs?
amenity, I suppose that could. Sorry, I didn't.
Did someone ask a question?
I spoke over you. I'm sorry. I was just curious as to where the dog, I know that's come up twice now in conversation. That's not on what we're seeing now. Is that correct?
It's not on this site plan. Now,
Okay.
that's important to the council. That can easily be added, and it can be future, or it can be the new amenity proposed for this grant application.
Michael, I'm sorry, go ahead, Melissa.
I mean, I know as a council, we've talked about dog park a couple times. Mr. Smitherman had brought it up in previous sessions, and myself as well. And it does seem on question 13 as if there's some tallies on that, and I'm sure Jean Marie is looking at some tallies on the dog park, or looking at tallying something. But when it comes to, could we consider not doing disc golf and throwing in the dog park? I mean, if that ends up being, since we would have to then incorporate the nature trail. So, again, this is just any council members. I mean, Jane, anybody else have anything? I'm kind of dominating. I don't want to dominate the conversation.
Okay. Yes, I'd like to make a couple of comments. Yes, now with the dog park, I think we just need to go back, look at the numbers again. The dog park compared to the golf, as far as the numbers that came in. And also, I wanted to ask the question, do we get more points when we are considering the splash park compared to the golf? Or is it just that it would be something new that was not already considered for the park?
Correct.
I mean, do you get more points?
Everything that we've got here, Jane, is new and not already in the park, so every amenity has about the same weight.
Same weight, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, again, I think we need to go back, look at the numbers from our survey months ago and the recent survey, and see what the priorities for our constituents actually are.
Agreed. Question. Mike?
Yes, ma'am.
A couple of questions for Jim and Mike. So you said at the outset, when Ken asked about how you came up with this, you said you looked at the old plan. What old plan?
You've got a system-wide plan on there that is too old to use for the Part F grant, but it is definitely an existing planning document that we would have to consider. So we looked into that. It's very limited. So we did have staff sort of explain to us sort of what were some of the things they thought would be interesting to show, the visual preference exercise. But really, this data that you're seeing now, that 888, that's really what we used to come up with the first concept that you're looking at.
It's something I feel like you would want to do regardless if you had a Part F grant or not. You would want to connect the new park to the existing park amenities.
Yes.
So the next three line items are going to be the nature trail, the disc golf course, and the natural playground. Those items are around the cost of $200,000, a little over $200,000. The following line item, site preparation. That's for just development of the site, and then your utilities, your tying in your water sewer and so forth. So you have got a roughly a budget of between your contingencies, the value of your land donation, $387,000. That's what Councilmember Sadler was mentioning. Is that $387,000 can be used as your part of your match towards the overall costs. And then you soft your site design, architectural fees, all this is combined in there. So that's got a total value projected of a little under $7 million. So the way this, and that seems a lot, but the way Part F sends their cost estimate, you add in your land donation as if you were acquiring the land, and then you turn around and you reapply that back as part of your match. So that's an interesting method, but that's the way they do that. So for instance, if we had a requested $400,000, that would leave the town with $6,483,355. So coming back to the question, so you could have a splash pad here, whether if that may be $300,000 to do the splash pad. That would put your, that a $300,000 splash pad would consume most of that land donation value. So one thing that we were trying to do is actually try to use some of the Part F dollars towards your recreation center. We could have in excess of $387,000 obviously if we did all the amenities, but part of it is just a balance of providing amenities that, again, we would like to have 3 good amenities. You've got 2 of them in the recreation building. We need 1 more. And we're proposing, with the site plan we just showed you, was the nature trail, the disc golf, and the natural playground. So you could switch one of those out with a dog park or with a splash pad. That splash pad obviously is it's a great amenity. It really is, but it's probably one of the most expensive line items in those the future park amenities. With that being said, I'll just see if everybody understands that and has any questions.
Dr. Sadler.
This is cast as the master plan survey, Jack Warren Park master plan survey. And so since it's a master plan, to me it doesn't suggest that everything has to be done all at once. And so unless we feel like we're willing to spend whatever it takes to get these top 3 things, actually one of the top 3 is already in, the next 3, unless we want to spend whatever it takes to get those other things in, then we would put in what's being recommended, and then we would budget in future years to put in the next things that come in. We would not be ignoring the interest of the citizens. We'd just be planning it out over time to make it more financially feasible, unless the council just wants to push forward with it now.
And if I could add to it that what we talked about earlier, what we saw in green was the nature trail, the 18-hole disc golf, and the natural. The things in orange are included in the master plan, but not necessarily something that we intend to bite off in this grant cycle.
Or we would even be obligated to do in the future.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. Would you remind me what the time limit is? Once we put something in the grant and it's approved, we're required to build it.
I'm glad you answered. I'm glad you asked that question, Ms. Welsh. I talked to Mike and Jerm earlier this evening. The way this is going to end up working is we have a 3-year clock. The board will meet and they'll decide in August on who gets the grants. After that happens, they'll send out the acknowledgments and the contract. Contract may come to us in September, October. Whenever we sign that contract in return, it starts the clock for the 3-year cycle. And at that point, we have 3 years from that point to install and finish everything that we said we were going to do.
David, we haven't heard from you. Fred?
Yeah, I think,
Can you take the chart down? I can't see, folks.
Okay.
Yeah.
David?
I would, of course, I guess I'm more toward the dog park than anything. And I understand the plan and the way it's laid out to maximize our dollars for what the grant is. But I think I would like to see more of what the public would want instead of just planning stuff based on dollars.
All right. Question for clarification. Does that mean to swap out some things to keep the numbers about the same, or to increase the budget because we're trying to get as much as we can?
To swap out and keep the numbers the same without increasing the budget.
Got a quick question.
Fred, you want to jump in here real quick? You haven't had a chance to play.
Well, I'm just disappointed with the design because it doesn't have a four-legged friend's name mentioned DOG on there anywhere. And I saw a lot of responses on that. And, I go way back trying to allow dogs to and people and their dogs to enjoy Jack Warden Park. And, it cost me an election several years ago. So,
Dr. Sadler, I think you had a hand up.
Is the dog park what's listed on here as nature play area? What would that be?
No, the dog park is not on the current plan.
It's not in this list, is it?
No, sir, it's not.
Yeah, that's,
Oh.
And I tallied it up. It's about 21%. There was 182 responses
Right.
for question number 13, where it does mention dog park. And just quick glance, about 39 of the 182 mentioned the word dog park, poop bags, dog walk, something of that nature that's related to the dog. And so it's 21% of the responses, which in my opinion, I think that's a fair amount of responses towards the community favoring dogs.
But it's number 6 in the list, even at that, right? Or 7 if you count the first.
Correct.
yeah, but if you go back earlier in that report, earlier questions, basically every time anybody, if they ask a question, why do you not use the park? I don't remember. I don't have it here in front of me. But, they say because I can't bring my dog with me. I mean, there's so many mentions of that, not just in question 13. I mean, it's all the way through this document, if you will. People's dissatisfaction with the way things are currently.
I'm not opposed to dogs in any way. I've had animals. That's not really my point. My point is if the discussion started off with, we ought to be responding to the preferences of the citizens. It's number 6th or 7th in the list. That's all. That's the only point I'm making.
for this survey. Yeah.
Yeah, in this survey, sure. That's all I'm talking about.
Do we know a cost, Mike or Jim, approximately, or Hank, on what the dog park would be? I mean, could we swap out a nature trail and a disc golf and throw in a dog park? I mean, I think that's kind of where I'm seeing or hearing is that we go back to the drawing board and consider looking at the survey a little bit closer, and then considering swapping things to get within budget. My viewpoint would try to stay within budget.
Yeah, I think, and Hank and Jim can jump in here, but the dog park is relatively inexpensive. The majority of the cost is fencing, as you can imagine. typically it's around an acre, and you have small dog and then you have big dog divisions. Okay, so no one's there to deter what size goes where, just based on your judgment there. But you know, there are some, location is important because a lot of elderly utilize dog parks a lot, so we want to make sure they're accessible. We also like to keep them somewhat away from in close proximity to playground areas, just due to the nature of interaction. We try to, so location would be something we would want to consider, and where that, so accessibility and location are two factors that we use to evaluate that location. Sure, I mean, if we felt like we have a strong lean towards a dog park versus a disc golf, that's we'll put in toward your pleasure. Again, as Hank mentioned, we're just wanting to hear some discussion and what you like, what you may not like, and we can respond to that very easily.
Ms. Foster?
Yeah. So you guys have put in a lot of work. I appreciate, the draft plan. I appreciate pulling that, the 888 responses. I think we had mentioned that people could respond until May 1st. And boom, you pulled this together. So it's very, very helpful. That's the good news. Hank, you sent this information last night and today, and I've been trying to comb through it. I know you have a deadline, and you guys, I suspect, have a plan and milestones that you want to hit. Here's what I'm wondering. For me, I feel like I want to dig in a little bit more. We're meeting on Monday. Is there any way to do a little bit of homework and then give you what you need Monday to move the process forward?
I have one comment about that, Jean Marie. We were going to do the CIP because it was fiscal in nature and we're doing a budget meeting.
Right.
I think that if we were going to come back and do another brainstorming on a park plan, it would need to be in a different meeting.
Okay, and I don't mean so much the brainstorming. I just mean for me to give, if I'm hearing what you want, you guys want some feedback to say, hey, here's what I would give as my recommendations for what the plan should look like. For me to do that.
I think we could do that. We may run the risk of getting the opportunity to have Recreation Resources give us a take on a draft of the application prior to the deadline in June.
I'm sorry, Hank, say that again, please.
Yeah.
They've kind of extended their time till around now for, if I'm understanding, and Jim or Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but they've kind of done an extension of the time that they were going to give for us to submit an application for them to peruse and give feedback, and then to do corrections and redirections to the application prior to the deadline date, which is now June. So we were hoping to get everything wrapped up with the CIP approved on Monday night's meeting in order to get them the draft so that they could provide us for with feedback and let us know whether or not we had a strong application or where our weak points were.
I don't know how the rest of the council feels right now. Ms. Welch, did you want to say something?
No.
Okay. Jean Marie, I tend to really fall in your camp on this one. We got the survey information kind of just a little while ago, but in our discussion of it, we find that we really are asking what folks want in two different questions. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to see how that gels together. Mm-hmm. Second thing is we really just got the layout of the proposed park plan here just before the meeting, and we really haven't had an opportunity to dive in and look at that. So I'm feeling we're really being kind of pushed into this without really the opportunity to digest and maybe make some recommendations. I do want to, Dr. Sadler, I think maybe you'll have a response to this too. As a council, we have the ability and certainly the prerogative to say that, well, maybe a disc golf did rank higher than X, Y, or Z, but the fact is we're taking up over 2/3 of our site plan with a disc golf course. Is that something that we want to do as a council? Because we're committed to it for the next 25 years. I look back at the multi-use park that we put in the first version of this. That's probably the least used amenity of anything in Jack Warren Park, and we put it in there because we wanted to get that point to consideration because that was a new amenity. So what I'd like to temper our discussion is, yeah, we want the residents' ideas to drive what we offer. But at the same time, as a council, I think we need to use our discretion a little bit in the long-term best interest of what's going to be best for Jack Warren Park. And, you know, right now, seeing 2/3 of the park being used by disc golf courses, to me, I'm having trouble balancing that out for future needs. Hank, yes, sir.
We are going to have to take a short break. The meeting has gone long enough that Ryan is going to have to swap out some tapes. When he does that, he's going to need a few minutes.
Okay.
I'll let you know when we need to do it.
Very good, because we've cut off at least 4 times since we've been talking. So I'm not sure, Bo, how that's setting. We didn't take any actions during that period of time. It was just discussion.
Let's just continue moving along. Like you said, we just discussed during that time, so.
Council, any reaction to what I just mentioned? Ms. Hunt?
Mike, is it reasonable for us to see numbers alongside these amenities so that we know what we could or could not swap in and swap out as we're taking into consideration and taking a look at this survey? I'm in agreement with Mayor Horn in that, and as well as Jean Marie, that we need to go back and take a look at these items, but I think we need to do that in conjunction with what the cost could potentially look like.
And you did provide
Sure,
some of
so-
those costs, right?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Well, that one document provided some of those costs in terms of per square foot, et cetera. So you're just saying, Melissa, we don't have all of those costs and assumptions. Close those gaps and provide those to us. So that
You're looking for the future amenities that weren't included in this cost estimate. Is that what I understand?
No, sir. I'm not sure that's what we're saying. Because future amenities have nothing to do with our Part F grant. It has to do with the site plan for the park. And future amenities we could choose to do or not do. It's what we put in the grant that we have to do. I'm sorry, Dr. Sadler?
Well, I don't want to speak for Melissa, but in fact, you do need to list out all of the things that would be considered for substitution, because that's what we were just talking about, is what things might be switched out for things that are currently recommended, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Just relating question 12 and 13, and now I think I understand how the calculation was done on 13. It's just 182 total responses to that particular question, and but there were 800. Did I understand you to say there were 800 total responses to the survey?
888, I think.
I think it was in excess of 840.
All right.
Some people skipped questions.
That's about, what is that, about a fourth of the respondents who responded commented in this section, is that right? Yeah, well, I guess I have questions about, when we're looking at question 12, I just want to make apples and apples.
Right.
When we're looking at question 12, that's a reflection of the total response, right? Of the 880 or so respondents. Is that accurate or not?
Correct.
Okay, so the 182 is a subset of that, and so it really wouldn't be 21%. I'm not debating whether or not you ought to have a dog park. People want a dog park. I'm good with it. I'm just saying that that's not really an apples to apples comparison.
Almost 700 or so people skipped.
Who's that?
Not to provide.
Oh, correct. Yeah, you don't know what they would have.
They obviously saw what they wanted in 12.
Exactly right.
Well, they chose from the cafeteria line based on what was offered.
Correct. Yeah.
That's probably, I think if you'd offered maybe some of these other things, like I'm with Dr. Sadler, I think if you'd had a comprehensive offering that included some of the things they mentioned, they probably would have chose those too. So I'm in a real quandary here how to figure out how we weight this thing. Because I think, and gentlemen, I'm not being critical, but I think question 12 led them down a certain path, and that path might have been different if some other options would have been available for them to choose.
Yeah, that was a limitation of SurveyMonkey. You could only get maybe 10 choices in there, so we were always going to be short the ability to get everything.
Yeah. Okay, so council, we've talked this through pretty much. What is our pleasure? Do we want to have a little more time to digest this? And Ms. Walker, when you advertised the meeting, budget meeting on Monday, didn't you also say, and other matters that may come before the council? Just nod your head, Ms. Walker.
Yeah, I believe that our attorney has indicated that we need to say that on our future budget meetings, just in case. So we will be doing that.
Okay, do we do it for this? We do it for this?
It was not for this Monday.
But we said it tonight.
Okay, great. So we're okay, Bo, to talk about it on Monday?
Well, we're talking about these things having implications for budget, and so we're going to, and we talked about adding that to all of our future meetings, so I think we can say that that's added to our meeting, so we'll be able to talk about this.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what I might suggest we do, and I'll just make this recommendation if you think it's appropriate. I'd like a little more time to study this and look over the site plan and look over the survey information, and let's put off our discussion on this until Monday. David is a thumbs up. Fred's a thumbs up.
I'm in agreement.
Okay, it looks like we have everybody's a thumbs up on that one. Gentlemen, is that something that a parameter that you can work with, Jim and Mike?
Yeah, I'd like to verify a couple items that I think would be helpful for all of us, and I really do appreciate the feedback. That's good for us. It's good for town staff, and so we can respond to that. Number one is provide you a full list of amenities that are on the plan, whether future or not. Just all the proposed amenities there with a dollar value, and what I'd like to do is show you a proposed dog park location. If you we can get that ready to you by Monday, and get that to you to look over. We'll send that to Hank, and he can distribute that. Is okay?
What's the chances, gentlemen, that we could have a potential cost estimate to go along with this?
Yeah, that's what I was indicating is providing those numbers, more of like showing what's in as a phase, whatever this phase might be, a phased approach, but more like let's just show all the total cost itemized by amenities, and that way you can have that to review and say, well, I like this committee. I didn't realize this one was going to be that expensive, or this one was that economical, and that's not a problem.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is not lose ground on getting the CIP adopted by council as well. So.
But I understand real quickly that we already have two new amenities in the community center. So really, all we're looking at is one more to make our three.
Yeah, I mean, if you said we would like to just do the splash pad, then there's nothing to keep you from proposing that. But yeah, that's the pleasure of the council.
Yeah, I just want to be sure I asked that question correctly. Forget about the splash pad for a second, or any particular amenity. We have two in the community center that we're already offering, two new ones. So for our Part F application to be considered favorably, we only have to include one more, and that could be anything.
To maximize the points for that category, you only need 3.
Okay, very good.
3's the most you can. You're not going to get any more if you have 4 or 5 or 10.
Great, Ms. Foster. You're muted.
You're muted. Sorry, guys. So question 10 for Jim and Mike. Question 12 for Jim and Mike. Those amenities that you came up with that particular question, those came from the old plan you referenced at the beginning of the presentation tonight and discussions with staff. Is that correct?
Correct.
Anything from Parks and Rec or Beautification Committee, anything that any of our boards and committees had provided feedback for that showed up there?
I think what we did for that, Jean Marie, is the committees took the survey themselves, and both the chairman of the LBC and the Parks and Recreation and or the board both made letters of recommendation on behalf of their respective board or committee in support of the Part F application.
But I'm talking specifically about amenities. So as long as we've got, we don't need to hold up the process. I'm just suggesting, I want to make sure I'm clear on where the amenity listing came from if we're looking at amenities. So.
Well, we tried to go through what we, prior discussions for what we thought was good and the results of the survey. Of course, since all of this happened, the virus has really put a lock on our ability to have meetings, even on a small basis with our individual committees.
Understood. I understand.
Just clarifying, Hank, you didn't use the survey to come up with the amenities that were suggested on the survey, though, right?
There were the one that we used. Yeah, there were a lot of them that were come up with. The nature path, the amphitheater. Is that what you're asking?
No, when you developed the survey, obviously you couldn't have had the survey results, so that couldn't what I believe, Ms. Foster, where I'm coming from is that the amenities that you listed are those that were arrived at from either our previous site plan or what staff felt should be asked.
Or the surveys that we've got from the 800.
That couldn't have been on the survey because you didn't have those responses when you built the survey. Yeah, no, I mean, you couldn't have had those amenities from the survey on the survey because you hadn't conducted the survey yet.
Okay, I'm lost.
Yeah, so originally on question number 12, we wanted 10 spaces for images. And so we went back and forth with staff after reviewing the planning documents presented us, the system-wide plan.
Yep.
And we basically went back and forth a few times until we felt like we had 10 general images that could get the process started. We knew it would be limited, so we discussed adding question 13 to make sure we were able to capture as many comments as we could from folks.
Gotcha. Okay. That's important. Okay, let's, staff, if we're okay with this, and council, if we're okay with this, let's push this off. I think the request is to take a look at some of the other items that ranked high in the survey, either question 12 or 13, and see if we can throw some estimated costs at them, and let's come back on Monday, take a look at how those, and we'll do a little kind of mix and match and see where we are from a cost standpoint. Is that where we are, council?
Yes.
Okay, very good. That's two thumbs up now from David. Okay, so let's move on. Gentlemen, Mike, Jim, thank you very much for your hard work. I know this is, sometimes it can be like as they say, like making sausage. It's slow and painful. But I think the result that we're going to get out of this is going to be something our residents will love for the next 25 years. Thank you for your hard work.
Happy Easter, everyone. Look forward
Thank
to
you, guys.
Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Hank, can you give us an abbreviated report on COVID-19?
Yes, abbreviated. Well, I think everybody, like I am, has been paying attention to the situation as it's unfolded. I will speak to what the town has done early on. Some of the very first things that we did was that we closed the building to traffic in order to protect, I guess, the employees within the building from being the potential for being contaminated or infected with the virus. The next, as we moved on, is that we shut down the public bathrooms and the water fountains at our parks. And then after that, we taped off our playgrounds. So that is the extent of what we've done as far as the physical parts of town and the facilities themselves. One more thing that we did is, and this is part out of the fact that people and not being able to travel even before the stay-at-home order was put in place, a lot of the businesses were shut down. So that caused an influx of visitors to our town parks. It became an overload on the garbage cans and the situations, especially when we came in on Mondays. And even after that, with the amount of people that were home, from business closings. So we have contracted with a service to assist us for twice a week on dumping the garbage cans. It is a supplement to town staff and another way in which we've protected our staff from potential contamination with the virus. And that's about the sum of what we've got in place now for what we're doing.
Very good. Thank you, Hank. Council members, the next item is a discussion on the Vienna Village sign request. I suspect that could turn into a lengthy discussion. Is there any urgency felt by any of us to table this or to postpone this for the next agenda? Table it? Or do we want to go ahead and dive into it, knowing that we need to probably give Vienna Village an answer? Fred says table, or?
I just assume we table it. I told you earlier that I didn't think we even need to have this on the agenda tonight.
Okay. Any other thoughts by anybody else? Very good. I'm sorry, Dr. Sadler? I'm sorry, you're muted.
Table.
Table. Ms. Hunt?
Table.
Very good. So I'll make the motion to table item 12B3 for our, actually we could table it until our next briefing, if that's appropriate.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for your consideration on that. Okay, Hank, we do have some items that we did a briefing that we want to report out. I believe we also want to have an affirmation because of our mechanical difficulties that we actually did those things.
Okay, the first we had, I saw a hand. Melissa, okay. All right, you must have been messing with your hair. Hand went up. Okay, we had two items related to ditch line repairs at Marblehead Lake. First was a approval of ordinance 2020-016, amending budget ordinance 2019-001 in an amount of $28,280 to contract for ditch line repairs and pipe work at Lake Marblehead. Next was the approval of resolution 2020-020, awarding the contract to Russell Construction Company to do the ditch line repairs at Lake Marblehead in an amount not to exceed $28,280. The next set had to do with demolition of town structures. We had the approval of ordinance 2020-017, amending budget ordinance 2019-001 in an amount of $12,800 to contract with KDT Grading Incorporated to demolish the structures at 7632 Warren Park Drive. And then related to that, we had the approval of resolution 2020-018, awarding contract to KDT Grading Incorporated to demolish the structures at 7632 Warren Park Drive. And lastly, we had the approval of ordinance 2020-018, amending budget ordinance 2019-001 in an amount of $6,854 to budget for an unanticipated costs related to the 2019 local municipal election. And that goes to the items handled at the briefing.
Very good. In just a moment, we're going to take an action on that. But for those who are still watching, please, if you would like to participate in the public forum coming up in just a few minutes, please call in now. The number is in front of you. Please enter the webinar plus the pound sign, and you'll be put on hold until the public comment section begins. So if you wish to participate in the public forum at the last part of the meeting, please go ahead and call in and get in the queue. Thank you. Mr. Franklin, I think you had an excellent suggestion, because we did have some technical difficulties at our briefing, that we, at this meeting, go ahead and reaffirm the actions that we took.
Yes, Mayor. Just for the public's benefit, each of these things that the manager has just mentioned, we did in fact have a motion and a second and a vote independently of those, but we did have technical difficulties, as you say. So therefore, I'd like to make a motion to ratify all four of these that have been mentioned by the manager that was taking place last week. And so I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Very good. We have a motion. Is there a second, please?
Second that.
Councilmember Welch, a second.
Okay, Councilmember Welch announced herself and seconded. Thank you, Councilmember Welch. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And thanks for that suggestion. Okay. Coming back to our public comment section now for the good of the order. Hank, do we have anybody in the queue?
No, sir. No one's there.
Is there anybody awake in Louisville? Okay. Very good. Since we don't have, if somebody joins us here because of the delay, we'll keep an eye on the queue and bring it up as a delayed section. Okay, folks, just a couple of comments that I have. Number one, we are now in Passover. We began celebrating Passover last night. We are also coming up on probably one of the most important Christian holidays that we have, or observances that we have, in Easter. We have a tendency to want to get together as families. This is an important time for us, and get together as congregations. We really need to remember that we're still contagious, and we're still at a time that's very dangerous. So please remember, if you are going to get together with families, observe the distance rule, observe the hand washing. Take particular care, because our older adults are so vulnerable to the infection, and the last thing that you want to do is have a wonderful Easter or Passover celebration and have somebody come down with this virus. Second thing I'd like to say is remember to follow the prescribed things that we've been talking about. Please stay at home. Please use hand hygiene. Please use social distancing. Please keep your gatherings fewer than 10 people. If you have to go out, the CDC now has said, please wear a mask. That's really, really important. Folks, there's a lot of our friends and neighbors in Louisville who, with the extenuating circumstances of not having a regular paycheck and being in somewhat uncertain times about their jobs, I would like to ask a favor, and that's the next time that you go grocery shopping, if maybe you don't stock up as fully as you might ordinarily do, consider making a donation of food at the grocery store. Consider making a donation of food at the Second Harvest Food Banks. Consider making a donation at the Crisis Control Ministry. Consider making a donation at our Louisville Community Assistance Program food box. I know we all like to eat and we all like to be prepared for all those gatherings, but if we can show some compassion right now for our neighbors, I think it's a real important thing for us to do as a community. A reminder at Mr. Frank. Oh, by the way, you can find all those sites and locations at LouisvilleNC.net. Go to that site, click on the orange bar, and we'll give you contacts for how to make contributions and donations to all of those groups. Mr. Franklin has urged me to remind people to give blood. We are at a critical shortage of blood right now. The Red Cross needs your support, and they will test you to make a determination if you can give, and I believe they have a way to do the screenings there. So if you can give blood, please do so. You can find the blood donation center closest to us, or the drive closest to us, at redcross.org. Redcross.org. Go and please give blood. Finally, let me thank the staff for continuing to provide extraordinary services to our residents. We're spread out all over Louisville, but we continue to want to be responsive. We continue to remember that our first job is, number one, to be safe and stay well, but number two, we have residents that need us in these times of great uncertainty. I want to thank the council members, because your suggestions, your participation, all of the things that you've offered to do and stay connected with our community is greatly appreciated. As a shameless plug here, I want to thank Melissa Hunt for her assistance in getting us up on Zoom and getting all of our connections made. It is a challenge, as you saw tonight. It is a challenge, and we promise to try to do better next week. Hank, thank you, and Ryan, for all of your efforts in this regard. We can and we will do better. And finally, residents, I want to thank you for all of your considerations, what you're doing right now for each other, for your neighbors, for those who are single parents in your neighborhoods, those for the elderly, those who need support and assistance, and maybe just a word of friendship and concern. Thank you so much for doing that. Please stay at home. Council members, any comments before we adjourn?
Mayor, I do have one thing to point out.
Yes, sir.
The planner had anticipated doing going over the RFP for the I guess the comp plan reformat, and so that was sent out for us. I guess we're going to push that forward at this point to the next briefing.
Yeah, Stacy, is there a time issue on that? Because I had a chance to look at it this evening, and there are some discussions we should have.
There is not. At the briefing last week, council just asked that we had the draft, the proposed draft before you guys for this week. Hank did send that out. I believe it was
Yesterday.
Wednesday or Tuesday. So if everybody will just take a look at it and gather those comments, then when we are able to have a discussion, we can have that.
Very great, very good. Council members, take a look at that. We may want to work it in our Monday meeting, turn that into an 11 o'clock meeting as well. But let's see if it's appropriate to have that on our agenda for then, and we have time. We can probably go through this because I know there is some urgency in getting that RFP out to consultants for those plans. Council members, anything else? I'm looking at faces that are still awake. Thank you for being awake. With that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Smitherman makes the motion. Dr. Sadler makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please stay safe. Please stay well. Please take care of each other. We're adjourned.